technical term one-upmanship would fill, and in fact has filled, a rather large encyclopedia. It can be defined briefly here as the art of placing a person one down. The term one down is technically defined as that psychological state which exists in an individual who is not one up on another person. To phrase these terms in popular language, at the risk of losing scientific rigor, it can be said that in any human relationship, and indeed among other mammals, one person is constantly maneuvering to imply that he is in a superior position to the other person in the relationship. This superior position does not necessarily mean superior in social status or economic position. Many servants are masters at putting their employers one down. Nor does it imply intellectual superiority, as any intellectual knows who has been put one down by a muscular garbage collector in a bout of Indian wrestling. Superior position is a relative term which is continually being defined and redefined by the ongoing relationship. Maneuvers to achieve superior position may be crude, or they may be infinitely subtle. For example, one is not usually in a superior position if he must ask another person for something, yet he can ask for it in such a way that he is implying, "This is, of course, what I deserve." From The Complete Upmanship by Stephen Potter. How to be one up. How to make the other man feel that something has gone wrong, however slightly. The life man is never caddish himself, but how simply and certainly often he can make the other man feel a cad, and over prolonged periods. The Art of Political Warfare by John Pitney, Jr. There are other ways to fray nerves. During the Gulf War, President Bush kept pronouncing the name of the Iraqi leader as Saddam, which loosely means shoeshine boy. On Capitol Hill, the ritual mispronunciation of a member's name is a time-tested way to rattle opponents or haze newcomers. Lyndon Johnson was a master of the practice. When Johnson was Senate Majority Leader, writes J. MacIver Weatherford, he applied it with junior members who voted the wrong way. While slapping the young chap on the back and telling him he understood, Johnson would break his name into shreds as a metaphorical statement of what would happen if the disloyalty persisted. From The Complete Upmanship by Stephen Potter. When to give advice. In my own view, but compare Motherwell, there is only one correct time when the gamesman can give advice, and that is when the gamesman has achieved a useful, though not necessarily a winning, lead. Say 3 up and 9 to play at golf, or in billiards 65 to his opponent's 30. Most of the accepted methods are effective, e.g. in billiards, the old phrase serves. It runs like this. Gamesman: "Look, may I say something?" Layman: "What?" Gamesman: "Take it easy." Layman: "What do you mean?" Gamesman: "I mean, you know how to make the strokes, but you're stretching yourself on the rack all the time. Look, walk up to the ball, look at the line, and make your stroke. Comfortable. Easy. It's as simple as that." In other words, the advice must be vague, to make certain it is not helpful. But in general, if properly managed, the mere giving of advice is sufficient to place the gamesman in a practically invincible position. From Aesop's Fables. The Lion, the Wolf, and the Fox. A very old lion lay ill in his cave. All of the animals came to pay their respects to their king, except for the fox. The wolf, sensing an opportunity, accused the fox in front of the lion. "The fox has no respect for you or your rule. That's why he hasn't even come to visit you." Just as the wolf was saying this, the fox arrived, and he overheard these words. Then the lion roared in rage at him, but the fox managed to say in his own defense, "And who of all of those who have gathered here has rendered your majesty as much service as I have done? For I have traveled far and wide, asking physicians for a remedy for your illness, and I have found one." The lion demanded to know at once what cure he had found, and the fox said, "It is necessary for you to flay a wolf alive, and then take his skin and wrap it around you while it is still warm." The wolf was ordered to be taken away immediately and flayed alive. As he was carried off, the fox turned to him with a smile and said, "You should have spoken well of me to His Majesty rather than ill." From The Head Game by Roger Kahn. Christy Mathewson, in his later years, recounted a knockdown incident from the first game of the 1911 World Series, which he won for the Giants, defeating the Philadelphia Athletics 2-1. Charles Albert Chief Bender started for the Athletics, and Bender was throwing harder that day than Mathewson had ever seen him throw. Twice, Bender drilled Fred Snodgrass, the Giants' young center fielder. When Snodgrass came to bat for the third time, in a pinch, Bender smiled at him. "Look out, Freddie," he said. "You don't get hit this time." Then he threw a fastball at Snodgrass's head. Snodgrass ducked. Ball 1. "If you can't throw better than that," Snodgrass shouted, "I won't need to get a hit." Bender continued to smile. He had perfect teeth, Mathewson remembered. Then he threw a fastball strike that overpowered Snodgrass. "You missed that a mile," Bender said, grinning again. Snodgrass set his jaw in anger and began overswinging. "Grinning chronically," in Mathewson's phrase. Bender struck out Snodgrass with a curve that broke down into the dirt. Snodgrass was not afraid of Chief Bender's pitches. He was a solid hitter who finished with a lifetime average of .275. What happened, Mathewson said, was that a combination, the knockdown pitches, the sarcastic banter, the condescending grin, distracted Snodgrass. Then, having struck out his man, Bender pushed the needle deeper and twisted it. "You ain't a batter, Freddie. You're a backstop. You could never get anywhere without being hit." Although beaten that day, Chief Bender won 2 other games. The Athletics won the World Series 4-2. Across 6 games, the rattled Fred Snodgrass, a .294 hitter all season, batted .105. But as Mathewson interpreted the episode, he was a victim of gamesmanship, obviously and distinctly quite different from being terrorized. "Chief took Fred's mind right out of the game," Mathewson said. By Friedrich Nietzsche. Silence. The way of replying to a polemical attack, the most unpleasant for both parties, is to get annoyed and stay silent. For the attacker usually interprets the silence as a sign of contempt. From The Complete Upmanship by Stephen Potter. Glaciation is the name for the set of gambits which are designed to induce an awkward silence, or at any rate a disinclination to talk, on the part of possible opponents. The freezing effects of these gambits is sometimes of immense power. If someone else tells a funny story, do not, whatever happens, tell your own funny story in reply, but listen intently, and not only refrain from laughing or smiling, but make no response, change of expression, or movement whatever. The teller of the funny story, whatever the nature of his joke, will then suddenly feel that what he has said is in bad taste. Press home your advantage. If he is a stranger and has told a story about a man with one leg, it is no bad thing to pretend that one of your own legs is false, or at any rate that you have a severe limp. This will certainly silence opponent for the rest of the evening. If, for instance, someone is being really funny or witty, and there is a really pleasant atmosphere of hearty and explosive laughter, then A, join in the laughter at first. Next, B, gradually become silent. Finally, C, at some pause in the conversation, be overheard whispering, "Oh, for some real talk." And finally, from Strategies of Psychotherapy by J. Haley. Inevitably, a patient entering analysis begins to use ploys which have placed him one up in previous relationships. This is called a neurotic pattern. The analyst learns to devastate these maneuvers of the patient. A simple way, for example, is to respond inappropriately to what the patient says. This places the patient in doubt about everything he has learned in relationships with other people. The patient may say, "Everyone should be truthful," hoping to get the analyst to agree with him and thereby follow his lead. He who follows another lead is one down. The analyst may reply with silence, a rather weak ploy in this circumstance, or he may say, "Oh?" The "oh" is given just the proper inflection to imply, "How on earth could you have ever conceived such an idea?" This not only places the patient in doubt about his statement, but in doubt about what the analyst means by "oh." Doubt is, of course, the first step toward one-downness. When in doubt, the patient tends to lean on the analyst to resolve the doubt, and we lean on those who are superior to us. Analytic maneuvers designed to arouse doubt in a patient are instituted early in analysis. For example, the analyst may say, "I wonder if that's really what you're feeling." The use of "really" is standard in analytic practice. It implies the